Forbidden Psalm is a favorite skirmish game among my hobby homies. It's got great, simple rules that we've been able to reskin to suit whatever setting we're cooking up. So when Wargames Atlantic asked if I wanted the newly released box set of Forbidden Psalm: The Last War, I jumped at the opportunity. Kit bash 5 little freaks for an alternate universe, post-apocalyptic World War I kind of era? Don't tempt me with a good time. This set comes with a rulebook, tokens, dice, and enough minis and bits to make enough warbands for you and a few friends. Get a few people in on the action, smash together several warbands, and get playing. Those aforementioned warbands are 5 models each, so I had plenty of bits to work with, and fired together some little dudes. Now, with small projects, I have a lot of fun challenging myself. With this project in particular, I decided to use a very limited palette. 4 colors kinda limited. Like my friend Jamie Daggers likes to do on stream every Friday. Probably the most recognizable limited palette is that of Anders Zorn, a Swedish artist from the turn of the 19th century. Lead white, yellow ochre, vermilion, and ivory black is known as the Zorn palette, something the homies Malev and Spooky have both used recently with excellent results. I thought this warm palette would fit well within this post-apocalyptic world. Of course, I didn't necessarily have these exact paints in my collection, so I subbed in coal black, bold titanium white, yellow ochre, okay, that one's the same, and bold pyrrole red from ProAcryl. Maybe working with heavy body acrylic paint would be more accurate, but I was working with what I had. Before I started painting, I slapped a little of each color on the palette and began mixing paints to see what I could come up with. Something I would really encourage you to do if you want to experiment with a limited palette. I quickly came to a couple of colors I really liked. Black, red, and a little yellow created a nice, rich sort of burnt orange, while combining black and yellow created some interesting shades of green. I mixed up some of the burnt orange color and sprayed a base coat onto each of the minis. Post-apocalypse has got to be rusty and dusty, so this seemed like the perfect place to start. Whatever game, time period, or setting you're looking for, Wargames Atlantic has you covered. Want accurate Napoleonics? Got it. Classic fantasy or dystopian far future? Yep, those two. And now they're teaming up with game creators to bring hard plastic kits to things like Quar and The Last War. I've used their kits to kit bash all sorts of minis over the past year or so, and most recently used the skeletal heads in my Cryptcast army. Head to the link in the description to get some of these excellent kits for yourself. There's no extra cost to you, but it'll toss a coin to your Witcher, or me. Anyways, thanks Wargames Atlantic for supporting independent creators. Now, back to the video. To create an interesting khaki kind of color for all these dudes' pants, I mixed a little red into the yellow and started sketching on some thin lines. I wanted to get these fellas on the table fairly quickly, so loads of texture was going to be the way. Crisscrossing thin lines build interesting texture, particularly on clothing, and help hide any stray brush strokes. And ultimately, it's the way I enjoy painting. Then, to build some volumes and highlights, I began mixing in some of the white. I don't normally use white in this way, as it desaturates the color, but we're working with the limited palette, so by keeping the shadows relatively dark, very little white was needed to create highlights. After mixing the colors at the beginning, I knew I wanted all the jackets or top coats to be shades of green. I mixed black and yellow until I got to a nice starting point, and mixed in a small amount of red so the first layer would be slightly closer to the base coat. As always, I just used my thin, sketchy lines and zero blending. Yeah, it's that time in the video when I say that I don't do any blending. It saves loads of time, and I like the sketchy look. I simply try to get highlights in places that make sense, more or less, and let the eye fill in the rest. Loads of thin, sketchy lines and focusing on fun and enjoyment, rather than perfection, has allowed me to paint more, and that has helped me to get a little bit better at coloring my little war dollies. I painted these weirdos in batches over a few days, not bothering to write down ratios or save the palette paper. Intentionally mixing new batches each time, so as to have some natural variation. This is post-apocalypse after all. I don't think they're going to worry about precisely matching. Sticking with the green theme, the helmets, belts, straps, boots, and gloves all got a darker green treatment. To brighten up the various greens, I mixed in some more yellow, sometimes with white. Adding more yellow brought out a richer, warmer tone, while the white desaturated the green, leaving it feeling slightly colder. Both were great, and I had a ton of fun playing with the various green hues. There was just the one lone dude that had some flesh on him, albeit very mutated, grotesque flesh. Skin tones is a strong point of this palette, as Zorn himself painted incredible portraits with it, including 3 American presidents, as well as the King of Sweden. Primarily mixing red and yellow can achieve a warm flesh tone. Increasing the yellow kept the warmth while moving to lighter hues. However, I mixed in quite a bit of white, desaturating it and making it a more sickly looking flesh, particularly on his tentacle arm. The final piece of the puzzle was all the metal. I typically paint silverish metals using neutral gray and bright neutral gray. Mixing equivalent colors with black and white was pretty simple, starting with a mid sort of gray, then mixing in more white over a couple of layers, and finishing with very tiny hits of pure white for the brightest reflections. One of my favorite mechanics of all the Forbidden Psalm games actually happens before you ever play, during warband creation. Rolling on random tables for flaws, feats, and names. It's pure chaos in the very best of ways, giving each warband member character right from the beginning. With that said, let me introduce these dudes. This horned fool is Ghost the Dying, my warband's witch. They've got the flatulophobia flaw, and must always wear a gas mask. Their feat, however, is well read, meaning that they get a bonus manuscript, basically a spell, bringing them up to 3. This poor mutated wretch is Ash the Lucky. Despite the name, he's got the unlucky flaw, meaning he always rerolls nat 20s, although he does have the Iron Lungs feat, making him immune to gas and smoke. This masked legend is Wolfgang Mudd. Wolfgang is dumber than he looks, a flaw that makes him -1 on some tests. He is resourceful though, a feat meaning he never runs out of ammo. This is Veronica Shell-Shocked. Her flaw of safety first feels more like a feat, as she must always wear a helmet, while her feat of Vinny allows her to bring a free makeshift explosive to each scenario. Finally, we've got Florence the Conscripted. Florence is clumsy and will drop their weapon if they roll a 3 or less in combat, but they're a vet, and we're able to get 2 feats. Sapper, allowing them to dig a hole to provide cover, and Always Prepared, letting them select a free piece of equipment for every scenario. So what do you think of the warband? Are you interested in using a limited palette? Let me know in the comments below. And please check out Wargames Atlantic from the link in the description. Most importantly, thanks for watching. You are awesome.